The first time I saw her, I almost dropped my drink. Not because she was extraordinary, though she was, but because no human should ever look so alien and yet so familiar at the same time. Her skin shimmered in hues I couldn't name, like liquid sunlight trapped in a prism, and her eyes, her eyes, were deep pools of violet, with streaks of silver running through them. I had been assigned to the diplomatic contingent of the Terran fleet for a goodwill mission to the planet Velora Prime, a remote but politically significant outpost at the edge of human-extraterrestrial relations. I was just a low-ranking communications officer, used to handling transmissions, translating alien dialects, and mostly trying not to embarrass myself in front of more competent soldiers and diplomats. But as soon as I laid eyes on her, my training evaporated. "Careful," muttered Lieutenant Harrow, nudging me. "Don't drool on the ambassador's protocol panel." I blinked and tried to focus. Right. "Yes, sir." Harrow smirked and left me there, frozen. She was the ambassador of an alien civilization I'd only read about in classified files. The Velari, a race known for their telepathic abilities, fluid biology, and notoriously complicated mating customs. And apparently for not being interested in humans. Yet here she was, standing at the end of the observation deck corridor, observing me as if she had all the time in the universe. I swallowed hard. "She's gorgeous," I whispered to myself. Harrow didn't hear me. The official welcoming ceremony was surreal. Entire Velari families glided on platforms that hovered inches above the polished floors, their movements rhythmic and fluid, like water moving through a current. And the ambassador, the one I couldn't stop staring at, approached with an elegance that made the rest of the room fade into insignificance. When she spoke, it wasn't just a sound. It was as if her words vibrated in the air and through your mind simultaneously. I heard her greeting in my own language, fluent, perfectly articulated, yet unmistakably Velari in cadence. "Welcome to Velora Prime, Terran emissaries." I nodded, unsure what else to do, feeling utterly ordinary in comparison. The first few days were tense, but fascinating. We toured their cities, floating gardens that defied gravity, buildings made of translucent materials that seemed alive. I learned snippets of their language, picking up basic conversational cues. And she, Ambassador Lyrie, watched me. Always. From across the room, in meetings, while I tried to maintain professional composure. One evening, after a long day of protocol drills and cultural exchanges, I found myself on the observation deck again. The twin moons of Velora Prime hung low, bathing the landscape in soft silver light. She appeared without warning, gliding silently to the edge of the deck. "You find our world strange?" she asked. I laughed nervously. "Strange? Yeah, a little. Amazing, breathtaking, overwhelming, but strange. Definitely strange." Her laugh was musical, almost impossible to describe. Terrans have a way of saying things plainly. I hesitated. "I mean, your cities are incredible. Your technology, it's unlike anything we've ever imagined. I'd say yes if someone proposed to me here." I froze instantly, realizing I'd said it aloud. It was meant as a joke, a casual way to fill the silence. But she had stopped gliding, standing perfectly still, her violet eyes locking onto mine. For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause. Then she smiled, a small, enigmatic curve of her lips. "If I were to propose, would that still be a joke?" I choked. What? Her gaze didn't waver. Terrans are bold with words, yet uncertain in thought. "If I were to ask, would you answer honestly?" I swallowed hard, trying to remember all my training, all the advice about interspecies diplomacy. None of it mattered now. I wanted to say something clever, something dignified. But all that came out was, Yes. I think I'd say yes. Her smile widened, and I realized that in Valari culture, this was no idle conversation. Proposing or accepting a proposal was binding, immediate, irrevocable. You would say yes? She asked, her voice soft but laden with expectation. Yes, I said, and the word felt like a weight lifted and a tether tied at the same time. She studied me, her expression unreadable for a long moment. Then she glided closer, the ambient light reflecting off her skin like molten starlight. Then perhaps we should not wait. What followed was a whirlwind I could hardly process. Over the next week, I was taken through Valari rites of union, none of which resembled anything I had known about human ceremonies. It was not a marriage in the human sense. There were no rings, no contracts, no legal forms, but a bond that resonated through both our minds. I remember the moment clearly. She placed her hand, soft, yet impossibly strong, against my chest, and I felt a pulse, like electricity, coursing through me. She was telepathically sharing her essence, and in return, I shared mine. Our minds intertwined, thoughts and memories overlapping in a luminous stream of connection. I saw her childhood, her family, her triumphs and failures. And she saw mine. I wanted to scream, to run, to deny the overwhelming intimacy, but I didn't. Somehow it felt right, natural. I was tethered to her not by law or ritual, but by recognition. We were compatible in a way that transcended words, species, and even reality as I had known it. Diplomatic duties continued, but everything had changed. Walking through their cities, I felt her presence beside me at all times, a constant reminder that I was no longer just an emissary. I was hers. And she was mine. The Terran delegation was astounded. Whispers spread quickly through the corridors. A human and a Valari ambassador? Unprecedented. Controversial. Dangerous. Are you sure about this? Lieutenant Harrow asked, the first time he cornered me in private. She's not human. There are risks, biological, political, mental. You don't know what this means for your career or your life. I nodded. I know, but I don't care. He shook his head, muttering something about insane choices, then walked away. Weeks passed, and the union was formalized according to Valari customs. There was a ceremony, yes, but it was not a wedding as humans understood it. They call it the binding of minds, a private ritual in which the two participants merge their consciousness for a period long enough to establish trust, empathy, and permanent resonance. I lay in the ceremonial chamber, the walls shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, and she approached. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining. The air felt electric. Are you ready? She asked, eyes gleaming like twin stars. As I'll ever be, I said, heart hammering. And then we touched foreheads, and everything else dissolved. Time stretched or perhaps stopped. I could feel her thoughts, her memories, her deepest fears and dreams flowing into me. I share mine with her. For hours or minutes or eons, I experienced her life in ways no human could ever truly comprehend. When it ended, we were changed, indivisible, one in thought, if not in form. Life afterward was surreal. The Terran fleet returned to orbit, and I found myself thrust into a position I had never anticipated, an ambassador not just for Earth, but for the Valari as well. My opinions, my choices, my very presence now carried weight far beyond my understanding. And yet, through it all, she was there. Constant, patient, reassuring. We explored the galaxies together. Humans and Valari traveling as a unit, breaking barriers and building bridges. Every planet we visited brought new experiences, new cultural challenges. And every night, When the stars stretched across the void of space, we would sit together and simply exist, two minds intertwined in a quiet, impossible intimacy. But complications arose, as they always do. One fateful day, the Valoran High Council summoned us. There had been rumors, whispers of unrest, factions unhappy with a human bound to a Valari ambassador. The meeting was tense. I had never experienced such hostility, even among the most cynical Terran politicians. The Union, one counselor hissed, is an aberration. It threatens the balance. How can a human comprehend our ways? How can they understand the responsibilities of a Valari diplomat? Lyri stood beside me, serene yet formidable. He has proven himself, she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. His mind resonates with mine. That is enough. The council murmured, displeased, but no one dared contradict her further. Afterward, we returned to our quarters aboard the Valari cruiser. I collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. You are magnificent, I said, half in awe, half in relief. She smiled, brushing her hand across my forehead. You will learn that magnificence is often a matter of perspective, my human. I laughed softly. Then I did something I hadn't done since that first night, the joke I had made. You know, I said, heart pounding slightly. I always joked that I'd say yes if you proposed. But I never thought, well, that you actually would. She tilted her head, studying me. And now, I said, taking her hand, I can't imagine saying no. Her eyes softened, a storm of emotions I could feel rather than see. Neither could I. The months that followed were a testament to something extraordinary. Interstellar politics, cultural exchange, and the personal intricacies of two beings from separate worlds attempting to understand one another. It was messy, challenging, and terrifying at times. But through every battle, every negotiation, every moment of doubt, we held fast to one simple truth. Our bond was real. Our connection was unbreakable. And every time I looked into her violet and silver eyes, I remembered that first moment, the moment I joked, and she looked me straight in the eyes. It wasn't a joke anymore. It was forever.